Hello, my friends, Grim here. I hope you're doing very well today, and have I got a spicy one for you. This is another 10-minute deck tech. Thank you for watching it in the lovely Premodern format, and today we are featuring a deck we could call Pirate Stax, perhaps Pirates and Taxes, if you like that name a little bit better, or even Rishadan Raiders, as the Mercadian port city of Rishadan is quite the base of operations for this deck, both thematically and strategically. In some ways, this deck is kind of a twist on the Mud deck that we featured not that long ago. Many overlapping play patterns and card choices. However, the Pirates, they put quite the interesting twist on that whole strategy. So thank you, as always, for watching. Thank you, of course, to everybody supporting this content. And without any further ado, let's check out this deck and see exactly what it is up to. Alright, so the idea behind Pirates and Taxes is actually incredibly simple, even if the decisions can sometimes be very complex. The whole concept here is stopping your opponent from casting spells easily or at all. The number of artifacts that do that, whether by taxing the opponent's spells or tapping down their lands, is legion in this format, and the land base is no slouch either. Those effects synergize with the Pirate Squad, all named for the port city from which they hail, which serve as 2-for-1s. If the opponent doesn't have a bunch of excess mana, you're getting an ETB effect that forces them to sacrifice a permanent while leaving a body behind. So that's the broad idea of the deck, and of course, you will lock them out, perhaps force them to scoop because they can't really do anything, and if not, you're attacking, or indeed umbilicusing them to death. So, time to go line by line, beginning, of course, with the land base, which, as always, is just extremely strong, it seems, in all of the decks I've been featuring lately, just about. This is no exception. The land base, very strong, beginning with Rishadan Port. As mentioned, it is both the geographical and the spiritual hub of this deck, because all of the creatures hail from Rishadan, and porting down the opponent's lands is exactly the sort of nonsense that we like to get up to when we're piloting this blue-brown Taxes deck, if you will. Wasteland, of course, another 4 of absolutely non-negotiable, and we are a creature attack deck at the end of the day. Mishra's Factory, wonderful for playing defense against opposing small creatures if we are trying to catch back up. More often than not, will be used to close out the games. As you saw in Mud, we also have playsets of City of Traders and Ancient Tomb. The fact that these are soul lands, despite their downsides, is a huge source of power for this deck, making the cards like Sphere of Resistance, Tanglewire, and Smokestack much less symmetrical than they otherwise would be, and generally allowing us to just cheat on mana, even at great cost, thereby allowing us to execute our strategy. We have 5 islands rounding out the land base for a total of 25 lands, and with Port itself, as well as all of our pirates being from Mercadian masks, I certainly did feel obligated to pick a Masks Island, and I think this one's very cool. It's an awesome one, you don't necessarily see it all that much, and it looks like it could, well, be a little bit of shelter for our pirates if they want to kind of meet up, plot their next assault. Mox Diamond is a 4 of, and as always in decks it features in, it's very important. For one thing, mana fixing, and it's, you know, not a multicolored deck, we're just playing blue and brown effects, but with only 5 blue sources in the traditional land base, Mox Diamond's additional blue mana is absolutely crucial to functioning, especially post-side, where our deck gets probably a little less brown and a lot more blue. The other nice thing about Mox Diamond is that in any given matchup, you'll have some land that you don't necessarily want to see at some point in time, whether it be Ancient Tomb against Sly, or other land drops in general after you've played out a City of Traders, or perhaps you're against Machine Web, and you don't want your utility lands to get tapped and stay tapped forever. Well, Mox Diamond allows some customization custom ability in your land base, in that you can play out your best lands at the best times and turn the other ones, even if they're kind of rotting in hand or suboptimal, or even if you make the decision on turn 1 on the play in the blind, you can still turn your worst land into a Mox Diamond. Definitely very, very nice. Sphere of Resistance is probably the most important spell in our deck against slow curve opponents, because that means they're still tapping out, they're still vulnerable to early cut purses and footpads, and this can be effective obviously as early as turn 1 through a soul land or a Mox Diamond start, and that's going to allow you to immediately set the opponent behind. Mind Stone is another one of these cards that serves multiple purposes, one of the purposes being breaking the symmetry of mana production. Of course, Mind Stone is sweet as well because it can cantrip and help dig you through the deck in a deck that otherwise lacks some amount of card draw. Mind Stone and especially Sphere of Resistance are some great artifacts to tap down to Tangle Wire. Once again, we are deploying a really powerful, albeit symmetrical effect, and designing the deck in such a way as to reduce the symmetry and really abuse a very powerful card. Smokestack as a 3-of, I covered this in a couple other decks, how it is a little bit hard to play from behind, sometimes with this card, although you could also regard it as a catch-up card under the right circumstances. More often than not, it is the coup de grace when you are already taxing and staxing your opponent. Smokestack coming down as often the death blow. Umbilicus is a very interesting one. It's a card I didn't know about until I saw it here. 4-drop artifact at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player returns a permanent they control to its owner's hand unless they pay 2 life. So, you're either advancing your clock or advancing the taxation on your opponent's spells, but be warned, as of the recording of this video, Umbilicus is bugged online. You cannot choose to return a permanent, you cannot successfully say yes to the prompt. And these pirates are something special, guys. They're the real lifeblood of the deck. You know, there's a lot of way to play stack-style decks in Premodern, but only one way to play pirates, at least that I know of. Rishadan Cut Purse, 1/1 for 3. ETB, each opponent sacrifices a permanent unless they pay 1. Rishadan Footpad, same thing, but they've got to pay 2, and he's a 2/2 for 4. And at the top end, Rishadan Brigand, 3/2 flyer for 5, each opponent sacking a permanent unless they pay 3, with an additional clause that can only block creatures with flying. So as mentioned at the beginning, these are your 2-for-1s. These, once you have established a baseline level of taxation or of otherwise locking the opponent out, they double down on that effect, and they 2-for-1 the opponent, and then they start turning sideways to end the game. I mentioned the lack of card draw when discussing Mind Stone. Factor Fiction ×3 is the only kind of non-stax or non-pirate card in the main deck, and this is there to resolve the lack of card draw and the lack of selection. Hard to get more powerful in those respects in this format than with good old EOTFOF, you lose. Tormod's Crypt is the only brown card in the sideboard. Kinda hard to leave home without it. Hydroblast and Blue Elemental Blast start showing us that it really is worth the splash, especially when you factor in 4 copies of a Null, really allowing you some good game against opposing similar strategies. Propaganda, though, and Pendril Mists are my favorite parts of the sideboard because these are less commonly seen cards that absolutely synergize magnificently with everything we're already trying to do, while also being a targeted hate card. Propaganda, a very good defense against aggressive decks, and Pendril Mists, well, the opposing creatures better be on notice. This is my favorite card in the whole 15, no contest, super cool. Well, thanks a ton for watching, my friends. I do appreciate it. Let me know if you have any other ideas on how to build this pirate stax deck. It's definitely a sweet one. Not everybody's favorite to play against are these types of effects, but you know what? I think they're pretty interesting as far as pre-modern stuff goes that you don't necessarily find in other formats, right? So I'm a fan. I think the deck building is brilliant. Shout out to the list creator. As always, link in the description below. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, my friends, take care. Talk to you soon.